Hi, I'm Rob Nicely with Carmel Building and Design, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about air sealing in houses. Most people know that we have been insulating houses for a long time, and we insulate houses to keep the heat or energy from moving through the assemblies. So we insulate under the floor and the walls on the ceiling or on the roof to keep the heat in the house so you can stay comfortable. It hasn't been until recently that we started thinking about air sealing, and it turns out that air sealing is also a very important strategy to keep the energy in the house and keep you comfortable. So, another thing that I'd like to talk about while we're showing the section here is the places that are usually the most problematic, and those places are where the wall connects with the roof and where the wall connects with the floor. And the reason is because in the case of the floor, you're coming down the wall, you have this nice flat plane, and then you have to make this transition around the stem wall to get underneath the floor. And that means that you have to come up with some way of wrapping the stem wall before you start framing so that it can eventually be made airtight. Something that I have done in the past is to flop some kind of a membrane over the top of the stem wall and then wrap it up onto the wall and underneath the floor later once the framing is in. There are several products you can use to do this. The other typically difficult area is in the area of the eaves and the rafter tails. This is because typically you would have these rafters at 16 inches on center. That means every 16 inches there's something coming through your flat assembly here, and you have to caulk or tape or otherwise seal every single place where your rafter tails are coming through. After you've considered that, the next thing you have to think about is something that's generically called penetrations. Anywhere where a wire goes through, a wire in a wall that's going through all the studs, plumbing that is going from inside the conditioned space to maybe the crawl space, heating ducts, anything that has to pass through those framed assemblies that I was talking about and consequently you're drilling holes through those assemblies is possibly a place where you're going to leave an air leak. So in this first image, we're seeing infrared camera in the foreground, and it's showing the colder air moving underneath the bottom of the wall and the baseboard, and that's represented by the blue part of the infrared image. Here we see the camera is pointed at the attic access hatch, and the red line around the edge of the hatch is warmer air from the attic leaking into the conditioned space. Here we're using a smoke pencil to show the air moving out past the penetration created by the outlet box. And what we have here is this is the shear wall, and it happens that on this project this is the airtight membrane, so you can see that we have special shear wall called zip wall with the proprietary tape that seals the joints to keep it from sealing out. Another kind of material that we use, or a sort of a category of material, is tapes. There's a company called Siga that makes a variety of different tape materials. Using tape is one of the main strategies that people use to air seal the house. So Siga has a bunch of different kinds of tapes. They also have membranes, which you can put in places where you may not be putting plywood but still want to have the capacity to air seal. As an example, you could use a membrane over the top of the stem wall or the top of the foundation between that and the framing. Another category of materials that we use for air sealing is liquid applied materials, and we often use materials by a company called Prozoco that makes a whole variety of materials for different applications. These things normally come in either in paint cans, which you brush and roll just like you would with paint, although it's a lot thicker, or in caulking guns, which you just use the caulking gun to put it in place, and then you would normally flatten it out with a putty knife. So I've already talked about some of the benefits of air sealing your house. A couple other things that are benefits are improved air quality is one. When you air seal the house, you cut out the sources of the air where it normally comes in, which is oftentimes at the bottom of the walls or from the crawl space, which is not the place that you want the air that you're breathing to come from. Another benefit is durability. Oftentimes when a house is not well air sealed, you'll have air working its way through the assemblies. And as an example, if air is moving through a wall cavity, all air has some moisture in it. And under the right conditions, that moisture will precipitate out inside the wall cavity, causing conditions where we can have rot, mold, and mildew. And that can eventually affect the longevity of the house. A couple other benefits are, one, a house is going to be much quieter. It's amazing when you insulate and air seal a house well how quiet it is inside, and for a lot of people they find that to be a real important benefit, especially if we live someplace where outside noise is a problem. And the last thing I'll mention is that houses that are built like this are starting to perform better on the market. If you put a house like this up for sale, it'll sell faster, it'll sell for more. People understand that it's going to last longer, it's a better investment, and that all these things increase its energy efficiency, so the cost to own the house will be less.